Welcome to the latest episode of the Heat Check. This is a very special episode. With me this week, I have David Rushing, aka the mayor of NBA Threads, aka at Yo Rush on NBA Threads and Twitter. David, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I know we've been trying to arrange this for a few weeks now, so it's nice that we're finally able to connect, and I'm just grateful to be on the show with you today.
Yeah, hopefully we can make this a regular thing. You can be a friend of the show. That'll be fun. At the time of this recording, we're recording this before the Heat play the Trailblazers tonight. The Heat 23-21, 8th place in the East, continue to be kind of average, playing tournament territory. But before we get into Heat stuff, I wanted to allow our audience to kind of get to know you, David. I guess to start off, the first thing people notice when they look at your profile on social media, especially on Threads, is the mayor of NBA Threads. And you obviously have a huge following on that platform. How did that come to be? How did you become the mayor of NBA Threads?
Yeah, it's funny. I get asked this question a lot, and I really don't have a concrete answer. I should probably develop one, especially if I'm going to keep doing shows like this. But really, I'm like any other really diehard NBA fan. I was a part of NBA Twitter as long as NBA Twitter was a thing. I think starting in college back in the 2006 to 2010, and was there. I was there for all of the famous and well-known NBA Twitter situations, the DeAndre Jordan getting locked in his house so that he wouldn't leave via free agency. Like I remember all that. But I was never anyone who had any sort of platform. I wasn't a creator, so to speak. I was just a consumer. I was on the app. I was waiting for the next Woj bomb. And as Shams came along, I was waiting for the next Shams report. And I enjoyed it for many years. But it got to a point where it just, I don't know, it's just the platform itself. It started to change. A lot of the comments and a lot of the discourse was really non-productive, I would say. And it just, just wasn't really serving me anymore. And I'm someone who's, excuse me, an early adopter, whether it's social media apps, whether it's technology, mobile technology. So around 2023, I heard that Meta was getting ready to launch like a Twitter variant or, their Twitter competitor. And I thought I'd see what it was about. So I think July of 2023, it launched. It was really easy. You could just basically port over your Instagram profile. So I did that. And what's funny is, like, most people would assume that it was just a hit, like right away, like somehow, like I just started growing this platform from day one. But it was very much like my Twitter experience. Like I even created a post, like one of my first posts was, is NBA Threads a thing? Nobody responded. Like, no, there was no
talking to yourself on there.
I was literally talking to myself. There was no likes, no responses, no nothing. So I was like, well, I guess not. Maybe NBA Threads isn't a thing. So I actually didn't use the app after that first week. I probably didn't use it much, over the next few weeks. But around opening night, it's usually middle of October, mid to late October. I said, let me give this one more shot. So I did. It was like a Russell Westbrook gif where I was just like, hey, is anybody here? Like NBA Threads, like who are you going for tonight? And just people just started flooding in. It was crazy. Like people just jumped in and they were saying, oh, I'm going for this team, or I'm going for the Nuggets, I'm going for the Bulls. And from there, I just sort of created the type of content that I wanted to see, right? The kind of content that, as a basketball fan who was in their, early to mid 30s, the kind of conversations that I wanted to have that I wasn't necessarily seeing on NBA Twitter. And it just turns out that a lot of people found it and took a liking to it. So, I don't have the screenshot in front of me, but I spent an unhealthy amount of time on the app those first few weeks of the season. My phone was going off all hours of the night because people were responding to my content or following me. My wife probably thought that I was, I was talking to somebody else because at the rate my phone was going off. And we got a couple of weeks into the app in the season, and I thought, hey, there are a lot of people who are sort of yearning for community, who are searching for like the NBA Threads community, even though it wasn't really a thing at that time. So I made a couple of what I call community oriented posts. And it was essentially like, hey, this is a new space. Like the NBA energy here is amazing. I've connected with these 20 or 30 people. Here are their handles. Like connect with them if you wanna talk hoops. And a lot of people appreciated that. That posted really well. And I made a couple of more, throughout the first few weeks of the season. And eventually, one of the users, his name is Matt. His wife is an actual mayor. She's like a legitimate mayor. And he was like, "Hey," he just called me Mayor Rush, and it just stuck. It was something that I didn't expect to happen. And me, I'm actually really attention averse. I'm very introverted and somewhat socially awkward in public scenarios. And I was sort of hesitant and resistant to accept the title. But my wife talked to me and she said, "Hey, no, you did a lot of groundwork, and you were a bit of a connector for people to find each other and sort of help ignite this community. So just sort of wear it. It's sort of like a badge of honor." So I did, and 92,000 followers later, I'm the mayor of NBA Threads. So it's been a whirlwind. It's still very much surreal to this day, but that's sort of how it came to be.
How long ago was it that you earned that nickname? How long has it been now?
I mean, at this point, it'll be 3 years
Wow.
in October. So probably like 2.5 years.
One more on that, but just because obviously I'm sure you enjoy it and you kind of have fun with just the whole community aspect of it and just watching basketball games pretty much every day and kind of giving your analysis and just kind of building that community. But how much work has it taken? Like how much work has it taken to kind of be consistent? Because it's a lot. I mean, it's like every day you're being basically expected to provide something for this platform, for this audience. They expect something from me, and sometimes you have stuff to do, I'm sure. Like how much work, how much pressure does it comes with it?
Yeah, I never really felt like pressure because it's a game that I love. Yeah. It's a game that I obviously pay money to consume when you talk about cable packages, streaming packages. And it was really, I noticed a few weeks in that like, hey, this is what I've sort of been looking for. Once, I sort of fell out of love with NBA Twitter, I was like, this is the next best thing. So it wasn't pressure, but there was a lot of time that went into it. Like I said, I spent an unhealthy amount of time on the app. I probably averaging like 8 hours of screen time a day, literally just on my phone, creating content, responding to notifications. I got to a point where I learned how to clip highlights in games. So I would provide that for the app because early on, a lot of your like Bleacher Reports, your NBA on TNT, your ESPNs, they weren't really utilizing the platform because they're sort of entrenched on Twitter. So a lot of those highlight posts that you're used to seeing if you're on NBA Twitter, they weren't really there on Threads. So I figured that was sort of a need that needed to be filled, but it was sort of like a double-edged sword. Like I got to learn how to do something. I didn't really have a whole lot of experience with clipping highlights and, making them attractive for social media, but also I was sort of feeding a community that was yearning for that type of content. And there's a lot of people who do that now. And some more brands are starting to adopt Threads at a higher rate than they did before. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work. There were a lot of late nights. I'm a Lakers fan living on the East Coast, so I'm already up to like 1 o'clock in the morning most nights. It was a lot of work that I sort of did voluntarily, but it paid off. I mean, the community's in a much better space now, and that wasn't all because of me. Like it's a community, and it was literally a community effort. But yeah, there were a lot of nights where I didn't go to bed till like 2 a.m. But it was worth it to me. It was new and it was fresh and it was a lot of fun, and I was meeting new people and they appreciated the content that I was generating. So it was worth it to lose that much sleep. But I'd be lying if I told you now. I'm very particular about how many hours of sleep I get now. So I'm not pulling the all-nighters as frequently.
Yeah, you can't do those kids, man. You can't do those kids anymore.
Definitely not.
Not to put you on the spot here. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot now with these next 3 questions. But the first one, what would be your pitch to someone on X that is thinking about moving into Threads, and what would be kind of your pitch for them to make that switch, or at least to add it to their social media, toolkit?
Yeah, I know there's this sort of just natural instinct to look at it as competition, and it is, right? Like Threads is competing with X, but if you're a basketball fan, you want to be around other basketball fans. If you long for a vibrant, new, fresh community to talk hoops, then you want to be exposed to where those things are happening, and it's happening on Threads, and it's different. A lot of people who are on Threads, were on Twitter and maybe fell out of love or got tired of the experience there for one reason or another. But I mean, you still have people who are just as knowledgeable about the game. And there's a really good presence now from a lot of those who are sort of in the professional orbit around the league. Brian Windhorst does Q&As every week with NBA Threads fans. Malika Andrews is there on the app doing things. Richard Jefferson is on the app. There's a lot of professionals who many people who are online typically follow, who are starting to incorporate Threads into sort of their social media diet. So you've got to, I think it's just sort of a no-brainer, even if you don't move over completely. I mean, just come check it out, because it's new, and you still get a lot of the same personalities that you're used to over on Twitter, or X, if I'm being correct.
You got me. I mean, I was on it already, but you got me to use it a bit more after we kind of connected a few weeks ago. I've been on it a lot more than I was before. I mean, pretty much I wasn't on it. Even though I had an account, I wasn't really on it. Now I am.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. It does have a different feel to it than X, as far as the kind of the NBA Threads. Like it feels different. Yeah. Kind of more appreciative, I guess, of the sport, which is nice to see.
And really early on, when it was a much smaller community, it was so weird because there was still that competitiveness, right? Like I still wanted my Lakers to thrash the Clippers, and I didn't really want to root for the Timberwolves. But if the Lakers played the Timberwolves and they lost, I would show love to the Timberwolves fan. I'm a basketball fan first, a Lakers fan second. So I love Anthony Edwards' game, right? I love the strides that he's made every single year as he's progressed and gotten better. I'm watching a late season game between the Pacers and the Grizzlies, even though neither one of those teams are probably going to do anything. Well, Pacers definitely not, and the Grizzlies probably not either. But there's so much talent in the league. There's so many great players and so many up and coming players that you just want to appreciate all of it. Still keep your fandom, of course, for your particular team, but just appreciate the game in general. I think that's one thing we on Threads, though it's not a monolith, the community. I don't speak for everyone, but for a lot of the people who were there at the beginning, who are still there, we really try to appreciate the game first, and then we keep our own personal fandom second. So it feels like it's a healthier place for basketball discourse and basketball discussions.
Very cool. Very cool. Now to get into the actual sport, what someone you're like you said, you're an NBA fan. You appreciate the sport, the talent. What's been the most fascinating thing to you, or what is the most fascinating thing to you about this season so far?
I would say probably just the explosion. Well, I don't know if it's an explosion, but that's probably being a little hyperbolic. But just this early in the season, I mean, we just saw a lot of like 40 and 50-point games.
Yeah.
And if you tend to lean cynical, you're probably saying, "Oh, that's because people aren't playing any defense." But I think if you actually watch the game and you appreciate it, you see that like these offenses and the pace and the individual skill levels of these players, I mean, it's at an all-time high right now. And I think people tend to say that, oh, if role players or players who aren't like superstar tier are dropping 40 and 50 points, that's an indictment on the game where it is in terms of it being negative. I think it's a positive, because that means that the league is just flush with talent. And whereas, someone who's been watching the game for 20, 30, 40 years, they're used to really only your superstars, your guys who are making your max contracts, giving you those sorts of performances. Now you could get it from anybody, on any given night, which means as defense, you can't just focus on one player. You have multiple players that you have to scheme for on a given night. So I think looking at the talent level, and the when you talk about rule changes and things that are allowed now, I think that's played a role for sure. But I just think the individual talent level is it's at a place that we've never really seen before. And I think that should be appreciated first and foremost. And we can criticize the game and see where rules have been altered to sort of benefit the offense. But I mean, guys are just out there hooping. And I love it. I think it's great. But I think when you have guys who are, stout defensively and giving you great defensive performances, we should appreciate those even more now, just because of how talented offensively a lot of the guys are.
Yeah, I mean, even the Heat, right? Like, they're number one in pace this year. They've always been a slow team.
Right.
They have the most 140-point games in the league this season. One of the highest scoring one of the highest scoring teams in the league this season, and they're, I think, 20th in offensive rating, which kind of shows you, like, the league has, I mean, the scoring, like you said, has exploded. Like, pace is higher than ever, scoring is higher than ever. Like, it's even more like you have to look at the efficiency now as opposed to just points scored, because almost every team is scoring, like, some nights are scoring 130,
Exactly.
So it is about kind of efficiency, and it's definitely a different style we're seeing this year. And you're kind of seeing that trend of just most teams picking up pace. When the Heat are doing it, that kind of shows you, because they're they're one of the slowest teams in the league every single year. This is the first time I think they've even been at the top half of the league in pace under Spo, and he's been here for 18 years. But they're only top half; they're number one, so it's like to the extreme. So, yeah, I mean, to that point, it's definitely different. It feels different this season.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, and with the Heat, and hopefully this doesn't come off as shade, because it's really appreciation. Like, no real true offensive, like, superstar either.
No,
I mean, Bam is amazing, but I mean, there's no real guy there's no Luka or Shea or
Anthony Edwards.
Edwards. There's no guy there on the Heat, and yet look at what they're doing offensively. So I feel like that just really underscores where we are as a league. When you can put up those kinds of numbers offensively, when you can lead the league in those categories, and you don't really have like a guy, like a top tier guy offensively.
Maybe that's your answer to this question I'm about to ask you. But what is your from kind of someone who, you don't follow the Heat every single day, right? You're a Lakers fan. You watch the NBA as a whole. What is kind of your take on the Heat this season, and kind of what they've been doing, what they haven't been doing? Obviously, they started strong at 14-7. Now they're 23-21. In danger of, it's a long way to go, but in danger of being in the play-in for the fourth straight year. Our Heroes barely played this season. Bam has had an up and down year. Norman's, kind of an all-star caliber season so far. Norman Powell. What's kind of been your take on what the Heat have done this year so far?
Yeah, I think they've made the best with what they have, and I feel like that just kind of underscores who the Heat have been. As long as Pat Riley's been there, and as long as Spo has been there, it's not a team that just bottoms out, right? Like, hey, we're just going to tank and we're going to see what we can do in the lottery. They find ways to be competitive. They innovate, and they find ways to max out with what they have. So shout out to Spo for sort of not reinventing, but re-implementing the offense. I know they've taken a lot from what Memphis did last year. I know, and I think they're running a little bit more pick and rolls now than they were
lately. Still lowest in the league, but they're running more than they were at the start of the season. Yeah.
But yeah, just his ability to get guys to buy in and run their system and sort of max out individual talent where they can. I think the Norm Powell trade was really big for them. And shout out to Jaime. I know earlier on in the season he was balling out off the bench. So I look at them as, it just shows how talented the league is, where they can sort of be doing what they've been doing offensively, but still be like at a play-in level. And obviously there's been some injuries. I know Heroes only played like 11 games this year. So you obviously would hope to have your top guns for as much of the season as you can. But I think they've done pretty well considering their roster makeup, and the fact that Heroes missed some time. I think that they've done pretty well for what they have. And I don't know how you feel about Davion Mitchell as a starting point guard. I probably wouldn't peg him as a starting point guard, but I mean, I know that he's sort of filled that role for some time and is, has been, more than serviceable. So, again, without a superstar guy offensively who you can just sort of roll the ball out to and say, hey, go get us a bucket in the most clutch moment of like the biggest games, I think you sort of have to tip your cap. They're still in contention for the playoffs, which I think is their goal as an organization. They don't want to bottom out. They want to compete as well as they can.
To that point, they're always going to compete. They're looking right now 3 games out of the 3rd spot. So they're only 3 games behind, home court in the first round of the playoffs, but they're also still in play-in tournament territory. So it's kind of like that tight race in the East right now. Mm-hmm. Where one good week can, push you up 3 or 4 spots in the standings. One bad week could drop you 2 or 3 spots in the standings.
Right.
The trade deadline's 2 weeks away. The Heat are going to have to make some decisions, right? They have a bunch of expiring contracts on their roster that could be attractive to teams. I mean, Terry Rozier is one. Obviously, we don't know 100% the league will allow the Heat to trade Terry Rozier. I think the Heat are operating under the assumption they will be allowed to trade Terry, but it's not set yet. They have Norm Powell, which you mentioned, who could be useful to a lot of teams in the league, right? As a scorer, a guy who could play on the ball, off the ball, kind of going to accept any role, veteran. He has an expiring contract he's due for an extension. We don't know if the Heat will give him an extension. Simone Fontecchio, who expiring, smaller salary, but still a 3-point shooter that, 3-point shooting is always needed. And then Andrew Wiggins, who a little different because he has a player option next year of like $30 million. So he could technically still opt in and not become a free agent, but he could opt out and become a free agent and sign a longer term deal. I think that's definitely something he could decide to do this offseason. So question is, does the Heat try not to sell off players, because they'll never do that, but do they try to see what the market is for a guy like Andrew Wiggins, a guy like Norm Powell? Can they get a first-round pick to better position themselves for Giannis' pursuit in the offseason or any other star that becomes available, while understanding that, trading Norm Powell, that's not going to make you better this season, but it could help you in the long term. How do you kind of see that dilemma, right? Where if you're the Heat, you're trying to compete, you're still in contention, you're 3 games away from the 3rd spot, but maybe you can get a first-round pick for Norm, and maybe that's the right thing to do if you're thinking big picture.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think it's just kind of wild that the league hasn't actually come out and said like whether or not they can like what they're allowed to do with Terry Rozier. I just feel like this thing the saga with the betting has gone on long enough that they should have had a point where they can say definitively what the Heat are allowed to do with Terry's contract and what they're not. And I just think it's a little unfair that the Heat are sort of operating under assumptions at this point and not really knowing, definitively what they can and cannot do. But beyond that, I look at it as like specific to Norman Powell. Like he's been balling this year, averaging career high in points. His field goal and 3-point percentages are about where they've been for his career. But I mean, he's proven to be, a bit of a catalyst offensively for them, especially with Tyler Hero out. But he's eligible. I think you even reported on it. I think I read an article of yours. You reported that, now he's eligible for a 4-year, what is it like? I don't know what the exact
it's like a little over 100. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's like a little over 100 million. It's not unreasonable for a guy like him, but he is 32, so that's the thing.
He's 32. It's not unreasonable, but Hero is also eligible for an extension this summer. So it's like, do you want to pay both of them with Andrew Wiggins also having the option for $30 million?
You really can't. You can only really pick one if you pick either of them.
Exactly. Right? So it's like, I don't know. I think with Norm being 32, and I actually put Norm in a prospective like trade proposal when all that noise about Ja Morant wanting to be in Miami. I put like Norm Powell and like I can't remember what it was, like some filler, and I got thrashed on Threads, which speaks to how a lot of the Miami fans feel about Norm Powell.
Well, the Heat fans only want to give up like Terry Rozier and Simone Fontecchio for
and and as it was reported, Ja's trade value was relatively low, so maybe that's in line with what the Heat were offering if those discussions were actually real. But with him being 32 and playing as well as he is, maybe he's like a sell high candidate, right? You move him, you can get a first. You've got, I think, your picks for the next several years. if Giannis isn't moved by this deadline, maybe that is like something you go big fish hunting in the summer. I know from my standpoint as a Lakers fan, I know the Wiggins talk has been around since I think last summer, right? Like there's been multiple reports about the Lakers being interested in Wiggins, but the Heat's asking price was too high. Now that we're into the season, I don't know that I don't know that the Lakers can afford to say that any proposal is too high, as much as we're challenged on the perimeter when it comes to defense. So I think whether you move Norm, Wiggins, and or both of them, I think you can, the Heat is a savvy enough and Pat Riley's a savvy enough front office executive that they can probably net a first for each of those guys. The trouble is if you can't get Giannis, now, I mean, you've got cap space. What was it for? You've got cap space. But I mean, if you look at the free agent class next year, you've got some guys who will obviously help, but is the available talent worth moving the two guys that you have now for first round draft picks when you're a team that isn't trying to go into rebuild status? And I feel like that's the $1 million question. Like, is Giannis, is that risk waiting and seeing what's going to happen with him? Is it worth it to move those guys now? Because if he's not available or he goes somewhere else, now you've got 2 first round picks, but now you kind of have to fill those holes.
Yeah, I guess I know Giannis has said he doesn't want to leave Milwaukee, but it just seems like things are trending in that direction, right? Like whether it's before the trade deadline or in the offseason, it just doesn't seem like he's going to be there forever. With the way things are going, obviously things could change, but just from the outside looking at it, just doesn't seem that way. And if you're the Heat, you have 2 unprotected first round picks you can trade right now. Even in the offseason, you'll have 2 unprotected first round picks. Now all of a sudden, if you get 2 picks, again, I think Norman Wiggs are having really good seasons for them, for the Heat, and without them, they're going to be a worse team. There's no doubt about that, right? Even with Tyler Hero eventually coming back and probably filling in Norm's spot, there you have that replacement, but you're still losing Norm, his offensive talent. And Wiggins has been really good, like as a 3-point shooter, as a defender, as an offensive rebounder, all the in-between things. Like he's a good veteran player, especially when he's your, 3rd or 4th best player, an option on offense. Like that's a good place to be. You're gonna be a worse team if you trade those 2. But if you have 4 first round picks you can trade now, that's a big difference in 2, right? And then you throw in a talent like Kel'el Ware and Jaime Jaquez, and even Tyler Hero, right? If it's with Giannis, like that's not a bad trade package. So I think if you're the Heat, you gotta put yourself in position. If you want to go whale hunting, as Pat Riley would call it, you got to put yourself in position to go whale hunting.
Yeah.
And those are the type of moves that would put them in position to do that. So again, that is the tough call for them, because again, they are not one to want to take a step back for just a chance of doing something. Like that's not how they operate, right?
Right.
But they're in a situation where that might be the right thing to do. And maybe that's dictated by what happens in the next 2 weeks. Or maybe if the Heat win 7 in a row, some would argue that'd be fool's gold, but maybe they're 4th in the East, and all of a sudden they're like, we're going for it. We're not going to trade Norm. We're not going to trade Andrew Wiggins. And maybe if they lose 4 or 5 in a row and they drop to 10th, then the answer becomes more clear. Yeah. But probably the more likely outcome is they're around 500 still, and they have to make that call of, at the last few days before the deadline of what do we do. And that is going to be really interesting to see what they kind of decide on.
It is. And if you don't mind asking, like I've noticed that there's sort of this tiff between Kel'el and Spo. I know Spo had a very interesting comments post game, I believe it was the other night. And do you think I think if Giannis is available, I think it's no brainer. You put Kel'el in. Yeah. But is he someone who's seen as like someone who they want to sort of, have for the future? Or do you think, like, what's your take on that sort of relationship right now?
It's interesting because to me, he's their most attractive young player, at least as a trade chip, right? He's 21. He's a 7-footer who can shoot threes, can block shots. Yeah. Has athleticism, is a lob threat. Like you look at that at 21 years old, that skill set, like any team would want that, right? Yeah. He's shooting threes at like 40% this year. I mean, and he can. He's a really good rim protector. But The problem is that him and Bam haven't proven they can play together. And Spo has given them an opportunity to do that. They've started a bunch of games together. And they're like the second worst two-man lineup on the team. Like they just get dominated. Like they get teams blitz them whenever they're on the court together. And a lot of that comes down to the defensive end. Kalel still, while he can block shots, he's just sometimes not in the right spots defensively.
Yeah.
Pick and roll, people like target him in pick and rolls. So teams take advantage that way. So the issue now is we move back to a bench role, and Bam is going to play 33, 34 minutes a night.
Yeah.
So that leaves Kalel with like 14, 15 minutes a night, and that's just not enough for a guy that you're trying to make, one of your core pieces, right? Like if he's one of your core pieces, you should be playing 25, 30 minutes. And that is the challenge right now of kind of finding that balance of like, we want to play him 25 minutes, but at the same time, we can't really play him with Bam because it doesn't lead to any good results. So I think there's been frustration on both sides with that, where Spo wants it to work with Bam and Kalel, and it just hasn't. And then Kalel's like, I want to play more. So I think that's kind of at the center of the push and pull right now of wanting to let him play through it. But like we've said with the Heat, they want to win. And they're not going to play a guy 30 minutes if it's not leading to wins and it's leading to negative minutes. So right now that's the issue. But I still think in any trade for a star, he is going to be the guy at the top of any team's list, because he's 21, he's on a rookie contract, and his skill set is really like tantalizing, like a 7-footer who could shoot and is athletic. Any team would want that.
Yeah, I neither here nor there, but I traded for him on my NBA franchise as my son of the future. So I'm definitely all in on the Kalel Ware fan club.
If you're the, I know you're a Lakers fan. Obviously, we've mentioned that a few times. But would you trade a first for Andrew Wiggins at this point? Would you trade a first-round pick if it meant getting Andrew Wiggins before the deadline? Understanding that he could become a free agent, it could end up being a rental.
Yeah, I think I would, and the reason being is because even with him having a player option next year, and I know the Lakers have been really intentional about Luka's timeline and not taking on any contracts that really exceed this year unless it's like a guy. I think he is when you talk about like how the Lakers want to play in terms of switchability, he's a guy who can guard multiple positions. And I think he's really settled into his role as, a guy who can give you, 30 on any given night if he gets hot. But he's going to give you relatively consistent performance offensively and defensively. He's going to bring the versatility and athleticism that the Lakers are severely lacking right now. And he's 30 years old, so he's not a spring chicken, but he's not old either.
Right.
So I think it's a situation where, I would feel comfortable giving up a first for him. And I think it's a situation where they could work out. He may not, whether he opts into the 30 or not. I think it's where if they got to the point where they say, hey, we opt out of this 30, but we can sort of extend you, for the next couple of years. I think he's a player that would complement Luka very well, and fit into whatever their long-term plans are. Because it seems like all indications point now that they want to have Luka and Austin sort of leading this team forward. And we know Austin's in line for a big payday, but I think you could still work in sort of like an opt-out and sign a new deal.
Yeah, maybe less money per year, but like more years,
per year,
more guaranteed money. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that would work, especially with, I don't know this for sure. You speak to more NBA players than I do on a daily basis, but I feel like Luka and Austin are guys that other players would want to play with.
Yeah.
And I think you want to get your money, of course, but you want to be in a position where you can win. And I think with Luka at 26, 27, Austin in the same age range, the Lakers with a lot of cap space next year, you slot Wiggins in and then you fill the roster out. I think you can be a really competitive team in the West, even though OKC and San Antonio look like behemoths and, in waiting, we never know what's going to happen. Like we've seen many teams throughout the history of this league seem like they were going to just run the table for years to come, and it doesn't happen. So I think Wiggins is a player I would feel comfortable giving up a first for. You can have any number of the expiring contracts. I'm not attached to any of them. Like I love them all. They're all Lakers, and I ride for my team. But if it's Wiggins in a first to short, if it's a Rui or Gabe or Dalton or a combination of those guys.
Oh, he would love Gabe back.
Yeah.
Gabe is such a Heat guy. I love covering Gabe. Great guy.
Yeah, I Gabe is interesting because if you look at him defensively, he's a really big negative right now. But I know there's still like
there's something there, yeah.
There's a contributing player there. I just think the LA thing just hasn't really been a fit, and it's really hard.
The injuries and yeah,
and it's just really hard to come in and play with LeBron, and then you add Luka to the mix, and then the emergence of AR. He's essentially just got to be a spot up shooter, and I think he's capable of more than that. He can definitely hit, do the catch and shoot routine on a given night, but I think there's more to him, and just asking him to be a spot up shooter guy and defend guys who are like 6 inches taller than him on any given night is just sort of shortchanging him. But yeah, any number of the expiring contracts in a first, I think I would do for Wiggins. And
you got a deal. You got a deal right now. No, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how the next few weeks play out on the court and off the court. He'd have some really important decisions to make, I think, and it could impact what they do this offseason, right? If they get those picks, if they unload these expiring contracts before they expire this offseason, like it's gonna really dictate, I think, how this offseason looks as well. So these 2 weeks are going to be important. I think we could end right there, David. I think that was a kind of a good first episode together. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll have you again soon. Again, follow him if you're not already at Yo Rush on Threads. Go on Threads. It's fun. It's different. You can follow me at Anthony_Chang on X. Follow me on Anthony_Chang on X. Follow him at Yo Rush on Threads. Enjoy both platforms. Thank you again, David. It was really fun to do this, and again, we'll have you again soon.
Pleasure's all mine. I appreciate you guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
See you all next week.